Before he turned onto Walnut from 7th Street downtown, Uber driver Sam Singh watched as Maddie Hart pounded on Brianna Benson's car.
She hitting the car. She banging on the backside first, on the side.
Okay.
As soon as Singh turned the corner, you can see in the upper left corner of the screen Hart pounding her fist against the hood of Benson's car. A split second later, Benson's car turned into Hart, running her over and then dragging her nearly 90 feet.
They hit her, and she fell down, and they run the car on top on her.
Okay.
And she's still under the car, and they keep dragging her.
Did they ever stop?
No.
Prosecutors say Benson intentionally ran over Hart, the result of bad blood involving one of Hart's friends and Benson's younger sister. In the moments before the deadly encounter, this street brawl erupted between young women on both sides. It happened last March during the early morning hours. Benson is the woman with red hair. Hart had on a gray shirt. During cross-examination, Benson's defense attorney said Hart was like a crazy lady pounding on Benson's car, suggesting Benson was scared and simply trying to drive away. An officer who found Hart knew she'd been gravely injured.
Her pants were completely torn. There were tears on both legs, and there was blood coming from her head.
Now, Maddie Hart died 4 days later. Today, the jury also saw more videos of the deadly encounter, including one that showed a side view of Hart under Benson's car as the car was moving. Some jurors gasped out loud as that video played. Todd Dykes, WLWT News 5.
Certainly hard to watch.